Welcome to the Angular Plus Show, where app developers of all kinds share their insights and experiences. Let's get started.
Welcome to another episode of the Angular Plus Show. I'm incredibly excited, and I hope my other co-hosts and former guests don't hear that, because this has high potential to be the favorite episode of this season, if not even more. So I don't think I can be much more excited. Before we go to the talk with the guest, let me introduce my co-host just to build up things. Jay, how's it going?
I'm stoked too. I still think back to the last time that I did a podcast. I think It was just him and I think it was just the two of us last time we did this, I believe. But anyway, I remember that.
My last time with that guest was also just me and him, and I hold that very dear. Very close.
Now we need to share him, Jan.
Well, if we have actual video, this is completely for trash because it's public on the screen. Josh Goldberg, how are you doing?
Hi. I'm watching you two fight over me with great glee. Thank you for that.
Well, it's usually like Jay and I have like a cute bromance kind of thing going on, and now this is getting into like a weird Drupal kind of situation.
Josh has entered the room, and neither of us know how to act anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sensing like there's a breakup impending, and I'm the dog that you both want, and no one really knows what's going to happen.
Who gets the dog?
To be fair, you do give golden retriever vibes.
Thank you.
So true.
So, Josh, I think we met in Bulgaria the first time at a tech conference, and we're doing loops with my little one. And since then, we've talked a couple times about linting. I assume, strong assumption, we're talking about linting again. Is that a fair assumption?
I would love to talk about linting with you two.
Sweet.
Great. I love linting.
Everyone loves it. There's no controversy about that at all.
I also love cleaning up the lint trap in my dryer, because it just feels so good to get the bulk of the lint out. And you're like, oh, there's so much in here. This is great,
But you wait until
or is that just me?
I don't think you're supposed to wait until it's satisfying.
Okay, but like I'm an adult and I can make my own decisions.
And that decision is a fire hazard. Good for you.
Yeah, as long as you got fire insurance, you're good.
Yeah.
Do I hope I do. I would assume I do.
One thing that I think is hilarious about linting is that the JavaScript people have kind of like this love-hate relationship with linting, most of them. Whereas like other ecosystems, some of them don't even use it. When I first found this out, I was like, how do you live like this?
Yeah.
So,
do JavaScript people have a normal relationship with anything? Or do they have a love-hate relationship with every aspect?
That's a great point.
I think it might be built into the language at this point, whether explicitly or implicitly.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of a symptom of the way it's progressing, right? That we have all these different things we work on. And so, of course, as things are evolving and growing, there will be different opinions and hatred and love for them. So the fact that we have a love-hate relationship with everything, I think, is like a beautiful symptom of a thriving ecosystem, as much as it pains us.
Totally. Except TypeScript, everyone.
Well, but you have different opinions. Like, I've heard that you still use enums, even though I think you're wrong with that.
I don't use... we
As
use
you should. I finally
actually.
convinced you.
Yeah, you did.
I stopped using enums. Only because the build tools I'm using have forced me to not, and I'm waiting for them to get supported again. No, it's tough,
Enum support in CSGO, they should. That would be a valid breaking change.
Oh.
Yeah.
So a couple of weeks ago, might be longer, time is very fluid at this point, you announced your new, I don't want to call it pet project because you put a lot of time and effort into it, but that's how things came to it. You announced your new project, Flint. What can you tell us about it? What makes it unique? How is it different from other linters in the ecosystem? What should the people know about?
Oh boy, big topic. But yeah, so to set the stage, and I'll try to remember to pause after this, the state of the ecosystem, let's say beginning of 2025, middle or so, was that ESLint has been around for over a decade. ESLint is great. It's very fully featured. It's stable. It works well. However, there are some kind of architectural gripes that folks have with it. I'm on the TypeScript ESLint team, and there are a lot of features that we've been asking for in ESLint that like haven't been implemented yet around type linting and performance. For example, the cache doesn't work with cross-file information. You just can't use ESLint's cache right now if you've typed lint. And then also performance is a huge thing at the language level. So there are these new linters like Biomes linter and the OXLint project that are like ESLint, but fast. They're in Rust, they're 10, 90, whatever times faster. That's really exciting. the gripe that I have, the reason why I want to do an experiment is I think that as much as we need the hyperscale performance improvements of things like native speed linters, there is also a large set of advantages that you get from writing your linter and especially the lint rules on it in the language you are linting, i.e. JavaScript or TypeScript. So the Flint project is something of a linter, something of a linting experiment where we're trying out all these improvements to the core architecture, to the user experience, to the way rules are organized, which ones are built in, to try to see, can we do better here? And I think, of course, because people love rewriting everything in Rust, the top of mind experiments, the top of the pile for a lot of people is, can we speed up the linter by using techniques like deferring to native speed for some tasks and having an actual working cross-file cache such that the performance of it is acceptable to people who need it for many hundreds of thousands or even millions of files.
I would like to dive deeper into the benefit of using the native language, because I could at the same time kind of make the counter argument that doesn't quite go just for TypeScript, but if we're looking at like the front-end ecosystem, things are not, we have Vue, we have Astro, we have TSX, some even fancy MDX. But usually like all kind of front-end work is a combination of HTML, CSS, and Java. So you're to some extent already breaking this pattern. And so what are the benefits that you're thinking of? And I don't even get into different runtime specifics with like fun now and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
you bring up a great point.
Follow-up question to that I want you to answer after. Why didn't you write it?
Why didn't I write it in CSS? Because that project that implemented Doom in CSS wasn't released at that time.
That's already been solved. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's already done that. Got it.
Yeah. No, this is a great question. The gap or the bridge between JavaScript / TypeScript to like MDX or Astro is so much smaller than the gap from those things together all the way over to Go or Rust or Zig.
Fair.
AI makes it easier to hop onto a new language, even if you don't understand it, or to ramp up and understand it quickly. But it doesn't make that a zero cost. And many teams, actually, there's a positive correlation between the teams that need hyperscale speed and the teams who write custom lint rules need to have a well-maintained set of lint rules. They also often need to be able to read the lint source codes or contribute to the linter or its community plugins. It's no longer the case, and has not been for many years, that a linter is its own project and you just use that. There are always lint plugins you need to use. Every modern UI framework, every server-side framework with a lot of users has a dedicated linter plugin. So, of course, when I say this, many people say, I don't care. I don't need the lint rule to be approachable. I just need it to work, and Rust works. Well, how do you think it got to be working in the first place? The more people working on the linter and able to contribute, the more fully featured it is, the more stable, the more we're able to improve it. But I'll also say one final point here, which is that it's not just the developer approachability that's important. It's also the tooling ecosystem interoperability. I've done a lot of work with teams who have custom lint rules, and quite a few of them write lint rules that integrate with parts of their app. They might have, just to annoy Jan, an enum, let's say, that of things that are acceptable, and then they have a lint rule that makes sure that some function only, receives certain types of that enum at certain times, and so on. So being able to say, work with your CSS and JS library, or your design system, or your server endpoints in the lint rules directly without cross-language barriers is actually a really nice feature for linters to be able to support.
I just take the role of devil's advocate, right? I'm not, I don't want to like come across as like challenging you on that, but I think,
Please challenge me.
Josh doesn't get challenged enough career. He needs to straight Josh.
Yeah, that's what it is. Everyone just agrees with everything I say about linting, and no one ever.
I might be wrong with this, but if I remember correctly, the OXC linter has JavaScript, so it kind of sounds like the best of both worlds, according to your narrative, where like tricky hard stuff can be written in Rust by the maintenance team fast, etc. Whereas like community plugins, where I care about like, okay, how on like custom I can just write in JavaScript because it's easier, more approachable, and those. Doesn't that sound like a good path in between of what you're trying to accomplish?
Sounds like a great path. What you're describing is what I've been calling a hybrid linter, one where some of it's written in native speed, some of it's written in language, JIT speed, JavaScript, TypeScript. Also, before I continue that, I do want to put on the record, I know this is not the question you asked and not an implication from you. I freaking love OXLint and the Biome project and all these things. Like we in this linter space have put so much effort into making sure it's a friendly and supportive environment, because we're not competitors in the capitalist sense. We're all trying to just make it better for everyone.
I do have to say, like, every time interacting with someone in that space, like the maintainers and stuff are very approachable, very nice people. Yeah, it's usually the people around it where it's like, oh, that's a stupid take.
It's the people with the opinions that are the problem, not the
Yeah.
people that are actually building the software.
What I like to hear. But yeah, so OXLint has become, in a sense, kind of a hybrid linter, right? Like if you have your own JS plugins, you can run it there. That means that the difference between Flint and OXLint in this context is not whether we want to be hybrid, it's where we draw the line. In Flint's case, I draw the line a lot closer to the core. In fact, I almost don't have the line at all. Like right now, Flint doesn't have any native speed code. We're just setting up hooks where later we'll be able to use native speed TypeScript, for example. The interesting thing about native code running JavaScript code is that you then slow down to the speed of JavaScript in some sense. If you have a custom lint rule with OXLint and it is in JavaScript, you are then booting up Node or whatever the equivalent process is. So my selfish goal here is that I hope that they figure out how to make that very, very fast, as they already have started to do. And then we can take whatever learnings they have and apply it to the Flint's language interop layers.
There are a couple interest talks that Evan did on roll down, particularly, and like beat how they did that, but it's not quite the same. It's just like there are a couple less learned. I'm probably not able to videos. Good luck out there. You got
I feel like the lessons we're learning a lot of, like, how do you move from one language to another? Like, how do you move data between one language and another, right? Because I know that was one of the points that's been a kind of like performance bottleneck up until I'm sure it's still a bottleneck to some extent, because it probably requires like system, or not system level, more like base tool level changes, whether that be NAPI or V8 or wherever. But like, I know there has been challenges with like, okay, well, we executed it from JavaScript. Okay, we push off the task to Rust, but then we have to get the result back. And that back and forth was kind of where the bottleneck's happening, right? So it's like, do you write your whole thing in Rust and make it not approachable? Or do you write the whole thing in JavaScript and not get the performance? Or do you do a mix of both, and then like you're only as strong as your weakest link, which is that communication bridge, right? So what's happening with that communication bridge right now that's hopefully going to allow these like native complex core components to work performantly with the friendlier JavaScript tools?
Great question. We don't know, but we have a lot of things we want to try out. And I want to give a shout out here to Avrid, the person who created TS GoLint, member of the TypeScript BSLint team. TS GoLint's now what is inside OXLint. They forked it and are working with him on it still. We have a lot of ideas. Avrid's been looking into this. Some of them involve things like I think we took this from Dino, actually. Instead of having complete every node in the tree, that's the data format for linting, be its own piece of memory, like have prototype getters that refer to some very optimized internal storage. I'm personally kind of excited about the factory approach of reusing nodes, where instead of creating a new object for each node in the tree, we have like a certain set of them that we can create and then dispose, meaning put back into the factory. From what we've seen so far, much of the bottleneck comes from the literal act of creating objects in JavaScript. And until there's a TC39 proposal for something called structs that would make that much more efficient, well, that we have to do fancy things to get around this. My hope within that hope is that we'll be able to figure out fancy performance optimizations that make it fast enough without getting in the way of users writing lint rules, so that it still feels like a reasonable, accessible ecosystem.
Right. What is a struct and why is it a problem?
So JavaScript objects have a lot of data associated with them. You know, JavaScript, it's loosey-goosey, it's wild and wacky. Yeah.
Did you just
and so
JavaScript wacky?
Oh yeah, it is wacky.
It's the wackiest of them all, for sure.
It
really is.
My mortgage.
Well, that's more of a problem with you than JavaScript.
Touche.
Yeah.
It's wacky, and objects, you know, the engines can optimize them to a certain extent. Like they create hidden classes behind the scenes, but there's still a lot of data per object. And it's very different from, like, I first learned to code first in Java and then a lot more in C++. In C++, you have these beautiful, hyper-efficient memory structures. And then now we have these modern languages like Go and Rust, where, like, if you ever look at, like, Don Isaac's SquirrelConf talk about how they made OXLint fast or OXC fast is incredible. Like the shared memory, the buffer allocations are so optimized. So structs are, from my understanding, not having actually worked on that proposal, a way to get much more native level kind of optimized fixed memory layouts in JavaScript so that you can operate on them kind of like a JavaScript object, but with a lot more performance guarantees, which would be great if you're, like, let's say a linter and you want to parse the AST in a reasonable amount of time.
I was just saying that sounds conceptually good for like any kind of tooling tooling, compiler.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the proposal is not currently moving very quickly, so I'm not putting any of my eggs in that basket, but I do have hopes for the future.
So I think your ultimate goal is to eventually stable version V1 Flint. What's the current state? What is missing to V1, and what can we expect with V1 to work?
I think if I can be overly grandiose,
you can also be honest. It's just the three of us.
Oh yeah, no one else is listening. I gotta go. I think that 2026 is going to be the year that we try to gain complete parity with ESLint, and then 2027 is when we try to gain somewhat performance parity-ish with the native speed linters. That's just my guess, my inference. We have a working core right now. We also have a we. There are a few other people working on it with me: Kobsu, Leisha Duck, Avred, Michael Faith, Barry Michael Doyle. Shout outs. Great people. If anyone else wants to join, please, the more the merrier. The CLI works, caching works, except for the fact that they're currently like 4 blocking bugs, but we'll fix those by the time this airs. Avred's also been working on a virtual file host where like you can lint in memory, great for like, web browser usage and such. Right now, my focus, other than just generally fixing bugs and helping folks make progress, has been implementing lint rules. I think the second biggest bet or new hypothesis with Flint is that we are drastically reorganizing and recategorizing the full list of lint rules that the ecosystem has. I did this huge dive. I think it's up to like almost 2,000 lint rules now of all the lint rules that anyone could ever want in a JavaScript project. Everything from ESLint core to like the React rules of hooks, and categorize them into whether we would even want them in this day and age if it's not, superseded by a formatter. And then what category do they go in? Logical or stylistic? Something that everyone would want to use, or like overly opinionated people like me would use. And then the Flint project has kind of 3 levels of rules: core, focused, and incubator. It's going to end up being about 1,000 rules implemented as part of the Flint project.
Wow.
We're currently up to about 400 of those Flint rules, most of which have been implemented by me using AI to create a draft based on existing Lint rules, and then me manually going in and cleaning it up to be actually production quality-ish.
Makes sense. Yeah.
You said you did this huge dive into like lint rules that exist. This kind of circles back to my earlier question. What about like custom languages like Vue, Astro,
Sure.
Angular? Angular being even more special because it's kind of a custom language, still a JavaScript file. I'm sorry. Took me long.
Yeah. I mean, that brings up so many interesting questions. Everything from like architecturally, like how do you support languages built on other languages, like TypeScript embedded in Angular or vice versa. Yeah. And then also categorically, like who builds the Angular rules? Ideally, the Angular team would build the Angular Flint rules, but that's not happening. This plugin isn't, it's not anywhere near stable. So that's we're working on the virtual hosts now to be able to really support virtual files. There are a lot of interesting questions there, like how do core rules work with that? And then we plan on having rule feature parity with the Angular lint rules, give or take. That like we will implement them, and then eventually, if Flint becomes popular, hopefully the community will take it.
That sounds more like a later 2020s kind of this, maybe 2027, or with we will first stable version whenever that will.
I don't know. Okay. Good question.
I'm
hoping most likely within 2026, but it's not high priority right now. Not because I don't love Angular. I love Angular, but because no one on the team is an active Angular developer. So we're getting to things like the React and Solid rules first.
Also, virtual files are just super complicated. Like the fact that you have basically in Angular, you kind of have like types in HTML, but then also you have CSS that refers to it's an alternative. It's just and Vue is a little bit better with having like a dedicated Vue file format with some rules, but not much.
Let me give you the most, to me, interesting problem within this space, technically speaking. Mm-hmm. How do you do base or core rules that also work in these extension languages? For example, the var versus let versus const rule. People always turn that on. There are very few situations, basically none, where you'd use var. But then let's say that the way that the language works, it's Angular or Vue. I think Vue in particular does this in Flint right now. The like Vue code is transpiled to this TypeScript code that's equivalent. Yeah. Well, what do you run the core, the var let const rule? Do you run it on the original code where it doesn't understand half the syntax, or do you run it on the transpiled code where some of that syntax is actually not what the user wrote and not the style that the user stands by?
And
we had yet to answer this question.
Right, but it's compiled the way because that's how they want it compiled, right? That's how the writers, the compiler, want it to be outputted. So it's like, do you want to lint the code that you don't have control over? Because that sounds like not a good idea, right?
Yeah. But then the problem is if you lint just the code you do have control over, the core or base rule doesn't understand the concepts in the view file. So like you get these like, I don't know, like unused variable warnings because it's used in some view construct that it has no idea about. So you kind of need the transpiled code.
But then if we're also talking about that, then you need to distinguish between vapor and not vapor modes, compiled artifact front.
Yep.
Same goes for Angular, by the way. They do this.
Yeah. This is why we need projects like Flint. If Flint just shows how to do these things and then someone else, perhaps OXLint, takes over and does them, great. We will have succeeded and contributed to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
These are hard questions that I'm very excited to solve.
Two questions, maybe the easier one. With my background, what are your plans for language server or general tooling integrations? Is it CLI first for now, or what do you expect the overall developer experience for Flint?
Love it. So yeah, there is a CLI now, and we actually are doing some fun stuff with the CLI. Talk about that more later if you want. I also plan, of course, on having a VS Code extension. That's kind of table stakes, and I'd love an LSP situation too. And then if any company has its own editor that wants to sponsor, create an extension for that editor.
Now we're talking.
I mean, ideally, I would love to have some sort of like cross editor thing, but like I think they're too divergent now.
Well, if you have an LSP, that's good baseline. I mean, for Knip, the plugin took me like a day or two.
Okay, JetBrains hit me up. Yeah, I also want to be some sort of TypeScript server plugin. Because if TypeScript is already running and generating type info, it'd be nice to reuse that, although it's not clear in TypeScript Go land how that's going to work.
I was just about to ask, okay, because my latest information was also like, we don't know what to do with plugins.
That's the exciting thing. And then also having some sort of like pre-canned thing you can run in a playground, meaning like a website that lets you preview things, is going to be really important and good. I mean, every linter has a playground. So that's part of why we're focusing on the virtual file system early on to make that more
cool. The question that I originally had on my mind and was close to forget, because we talked a lot about like there are things you're excited about exploring that more shape the ecosystem or influence the ecosystem. How closely, I mean, obviously you have a good relationship to the ESLint folks being part of them, but how closely do you plan on collaborating with that? Or is that more like Twitter conversation that just happened to them eventually? Or how can I expect this collaboration to work out or be?
I'd say I don't think any of us are many of us are actively working on any of the other projects.
Yeah.
I know Brad Zacher, the TypeScript ESLint maintainer, who's more deeply knowledgeable than me, is now on the OXLint team. So that's a big thing. I'd say that it's mostly that we see each other's work and then occasionally chat about it, like in DMs or in Discord groups. I'm in everyone's Discord, and once in a while I'll pop in and say hi. It's nice.
Discord's the worst, but yeah.
Oh,
so many channels. Oh my god.
And there's no search
servers. It's crazy. It's insane.
Yeah, don't even get me started on the notifications.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I think what I've been trying to do, and I think a lot of people are doing this, is be very open and public about the hypotheses and then also the finding. Like I wrote this whole, if I wrote a linter series of posts, which, surprise, culminated with me writing a linter. And then I've been also trying to document all the decisions we make on Flint. Like we actually don't really use our Discord much for decision making. One of our core team members isn't even on Discord. We try to be on GitHub and then also like link to this big old documentation meta issue whenever there's an important discussion.
That makes sense.
Sorry,
I can see the wheels turning in Jan's head.
Yeah, very much. So you kind of brought this point up. Okay, I feel super strongly about linting. How can I collaborate with you folks on that? How could I help you out? What would be the, please take this off my plate, I don't want to deal with that kind of people can take away from
I would
you.
love that. I wish we were at alpha status so I could say go try out Flint. Not there yet, later this year. We do keep a very actively groomed issue tracker, and there are always, I think, issues labeled good first issue. For you, I know you're at the level where you can probably just tackle any accepting PRs issue, but you know, if you really want to get your toes wet.
Yeah.
That's Jan. Yep.
I'll just
He does
remove
so much
every
development
enum and
now.
call it a day. Force it to main.
You have AI, right? I'd say the biggest stuff would be if you have expertise in an ecosystem or language that I, Josh, or other members of the Flint team don't have, come in and take a look at what we're planning for that. You will probably find really obvious things we can do better. Like Angular, for example, I just haven't written it in so long, and I look at it with great fondness from afar, but I don't really know like what is the latest and greatest. So like I don't even remember. I don't even think we have the lint rules for Angular planned out yet. So like just letting us know what would be good for us to do would be great.
I just to mentally prepare you, I feel like Angular might be the worst for that because it just changed so much even since version 2.
But But also at the same time, going back to what we talked about earlier, Josh, where you're like, oh, we took a look at the whole ecosystem of all the lint rules and decided what ones aren't actually necessary or relevant anymore. Like there's probably some lint rules in the Angular ecosystem that like, assuming you're building using the patterns that we know about and are recommended now at this point in time, there's probably a bunch of lint rules that can be removed.
Yeah.
Would be my assumption.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Flint is so new and low overhead as a project, you know, no legacy support, no actual users, that we can learn and grow and figure things out. And then, you know, you find stuff out in Flint, you bring it back to your main linter. Great. Everyone wins.
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm looking at the good first issues right now.
Oh God, I hope they're still there.
There's 2, 4, 6, 8 of them.
Oh hell yeah.
Yep.
If you want to write code for us, definitely there. We have an AI assigned label for the rules that I'm gonna AI write, but there are a bunch that are not AI assigned. I think a lint rule itself is a great starting point once you've, you know, got the drive to do something meaty. Every lint rule is a beautiful self-contained exercise in the logic, the tests, the documentation, that holy trio. That's how I got into a lot of open source, honestly. And I hope that we have enough good lint rules from folks to contribute if you're interested.
Well, I might go do this first one where it's renaming a.
Oh yeah,
I can do that one. I think I'm capable of doing that.
Good luck.
Just right after this client.
Nope.
One thing one of my biggest struggles probably with ESLint is figuring out, because ESLint has those just or like set of rules, and it's so hard to identify what rules that are part of that, but then also figuring out what other configuration options you have for the rules in that. And package might not be the right name how you call it, but you have like this recommended all for a lot of.
Yeah.
How are you planning on making rules more discoverable for Flint? And if this is a solved problem for ESLint and I'm just stupid and haven't figured it out,
nope,
I'm good to put my
I am salivating to be able to answer this, because this is one of the things I am most excited about with Flint.
Okay.
First of all, the fact that you don't know the word is a user experience issue. We have a glossary in Flint. We didn't just overhaul the list of rules. We overhauled the list of terms. And every term in Flint has a single usage. There are no overloaded terms like configuration. Instead of configs in ESLint and other linter nomenclature, we call them presets, for example.
Yeah.
Like we literally have a glossary page on the website. Very excited about that. It's actually inspired by the ESLint glossary, which I helped start. So yay. Another point there is that we are the only linter, to my knowledge right now, depending on your definition of mainstream, that has fully typed lint rules and plugins. You don't configure with like string keys the way you do in like JSON configs or ESLint configs, flat or legacy. You import in a JavaScript config from the plugin, and then there's a .rules function you call with an object, and those keys are the rule names and the values are false or some object for settings. Fully TypeScript. Mic drop. Mic pick back up. Also, we're planning on having a plugin registry. Right now, if you want to just find all the relevant plugins for your ESLint stuff, there's no one place to go. There was a project a while back that never really went anywhere, I'm sad to say. Right now, the best thing you could do is go to the Dustin Specker /awesome-ESLint repo, which is this kind of hand-curated list of a bajillion things that has some organization, but like not a great search. What we're going to do is have, first of all, most of the plugins built into the Flint project itself, so they have consistent docs and like one place to find them, but also a registry where we're hopeful that we can do some system where like plugins that meet a certain criteria can then register themselves to be relevant to certain characteristics of your project. Like let's say the React plugins will be suggested by the config initializer and the website if you have React as a dev dependency. Or
playing devil's advocate again, shouldn't that be solved through something like the npm registry?
Yeah, how's that registry going?
Yeah, not great. That's what I'm asking.
Very excited about npmx.dev. Yeah. Check it out. So there are, first of all, yes, ideally NPM would be fully funded and they would be exploring things like, given a particular subset of the ecosystem, how can we surface relevant packages? That is a general high level question and problem that's going to, if it ever gets full funding, which it won't, take years to solve. For us, we have a very specific problem, which is I'm using one specific tool. I want all the plugins relevant to my one specific tool. Right. We as the tool can optimize for that. And like, for example, build it into the Flint's config initializer CLI, which will make it Flint config for you.
That's true. Okay, I can see that.
What a world. What a world it would be, you know.
npmx was my literally latest core join though this morning, so I'm still a little salty that I now have another channel in my list.
That's the new like front end of npm that I've been a lot of actually, right?
Shout out Daniel Rowe.
I was just saying,
I think the talk's been on that a lot too.
It looks more like Daniel Rowe was salty about npm and was like, okay, I can make this better, and I might be a little.
It is better
on that.
It looks awesome so far, from what I can tell.
So, okay, sorry. You seem to have a lot of thought already put into this, which I like.
Oh yeah.
Talk me through this. I start a new TypeScript project, not Angular, because just plain JavaScript types. How would you want the developer experience, the onboarding experience for Flint to be? How would that look?
Great. Just to confirm, when you say starting a new project, you mean like from scratch? I have no code, I just have like a blank package JSON.
Let's start there. Yes, I have a greenfield project. I can pick and choose whatever I like.
Well, first of all, I hope no one does that, literally speaking, like just starts with a package JSON. I hope people use templates. Like I personally maintain create TypeScript app because I think that the act of setting up a JavaScript project is inherently and should be a lot of tooling, because there are a lot of great types of tools you can use and every project's different. So,
okay,
something that does it for you. Is that a cop-out answer? Am I avoiding the question?
A little bit. Like we can assume we can also assume like a Vite starter pack or whatever, like create something package.
Let me rephrase
Vite
the
Plus
question
is going to be a thing.
So I'm starting a new greenfield project. This isn't going to my normal mono repo at my company. We're starting a separate repository. So we go and generate TypeScript repo using NX, using their create commands, right? It sets up all the tooling. It sets up ESLint by default, and all that kind of stuff. What do I do so that I remove ESLint from my project and I swap Flint to my project?
I apologize for delaying. Sure, yeah, that makes sense. That's a reasonable question. I apologize for delaying the answer again, but I do want to know if ESLint works for you. I'm not here to tell you to stop using ESLint,
totally.
Et cetera, et cetera. Like this, if you have already decided you want to use Flint, I'd say that we don't have it implemented yet, but there are two things we want to build that will help with this. One is the general purpose config initializer. npx Flint, right now it says it's not made yet, but in the future, what we'd like it to do is read your project directory, figure out the basics of your project, prompt you for a few things like, do you want logical, do you want stylistic rules, do you want just the base, or do you want the really strict ones, and then make the config for you. Secondly, we are not aiming to be a drop-in replacement for any other linter. We don't want to have the burden of supporting legacy architecture decision styles, but we do plan on building a migrator that will take your existing whatever configs and then poop out the best, closest approximation of a good Flint config. So you should be able to do it all automatically.
One of the things that OXLint at least is doing, and I think they kind of recommend this path like this. I don't want to say hybrid because you used that term before, but like kind of like they to some extent recommend using ESLint and OXLint at this, like OXLint for everything TypeScript, JavaScript, make that part fast, and ESLint for everything Vue embedded files, basically embedded languages. Is that something that you are considering too, or do you want Flint to be the all-in-one?
We'd like to be the all-in-one package because we don't currently have any architectural restrictions that prevent us from being. In theory, if you have some wild and wacky JavaScript thing that no one has seen outside of your company and you've got all this custom ESLint tooling for it, then yeah, sure, you're going to have to stick with ESLint. But for most people, folks using Angular or Astro or Vue or React, we should have all that stuff made for you already. We'll have a compatibility layer so that you can run your custom ESLint rules as Flint rules. There's actually a lot of prior learning from the TSLint to ESLint migration that we're going to be able to learn from. But yeah, the upside of dual approach is, of course, you get all the features from both. The downside is you're now running two linters, which is conceptually hard and takes up much more time in CI. So we'd like to avoid that if possible.
I know this is not how the world works, but if you could say, don't talk to me, I'm locked in for the next 2-3 months, what would you want to focus on for Flint? That would be like, this would make you personally so happy to work on.
Oh boy. It's tough because I've been trying to get better at team building and community building, which is why like there's a lot of stuff that I'm intentionally letting people step up on. Like Avred is doing a better job than I would by far on the native speed stuff. I think the virtual file stuff is really interesting, and then I'd love to have a really good playground and like editor extension story. That's hard though. That's a hard question to answer. I don't know. It's all exciting to me. It's so cool. Like we're rebuilding the concept of a linter. That's big.
But here's the thing, at least to me, I like to see the things that you're passionate about. And if you say, oh hell, all of that is exciting, and I kind of have this issue that I don't even know which one to pick, like all of them are your favorite child kind of situation.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, Jay, do you have any flinty questions?
I'm curious about the CLI, but we can get to that after you're done asking your questions about the linter itself. I'm a sucker for CLI, so
I think I'm good with flinty, with my.
Okay, Josh, learn us about the CLI.
Yes.
Let's
So
hear it.
I'm so excited about this. We have different modes you can run the CLI, and this is already implemented. For starters, watch mode. TypeScript has it. A lot of people are not accustomed to the concept of running a linter in watch mode and like don't see the value. But I got to tell you, having gone through lint rule migrations or enables or whatnot, when you have like a bajillion failures and you're just crunching through them manually, it's really nice to have watch mode in the CLI, especially when you have a cache, so that it only recomputes quickly things that need to be recomputed on file changes. We also have, actually, I'll pause there. How does that sound to you?
I'm trying to understand the use case a little bit better, because this sounds more like something you would need a language for that has APIs for project-wide errors.
So yes, but let's say that your lint rules have cross-file information, like they're typed lint rules, or they use input analysis, and you change a bunch of stuff so that you have a lot of complaints. So the squigglies you're getting in the current file you're looking at are not the only squigglies that a change might cause or improve. So now you need some real-time updated-ish display of all the squigglies in your project, so you know you're not making it worse, or like just you're crunching through them like a to-do list. You got your AI working on the code, and you're watching to see which files are doing and making sure the AI is working well.
For obvious reasons, I'm not a VS Code expert, but I think they have like a problems view for that.
Problems only shows the currently open files problems often.
Okay, so a proper editor and the LSP specification itself actually as well has project-wide errors.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So then this is not relevant to you. This is a feature for other people. Great.
And I mean, like, you would probably still need because ultimately at the end of the day, the LSP is also calling some kind of API where you would want to have something like that. So I understand it. Just from a development workflow, it would seem more intuitive for me to use the piece that's editing my software, unless I'm using Vim. But then I'm also still having an LSP. So it's like, okay, I understand it's great to have, and I absolutely think it's super important to have. From my personal workflow, though, I think the LSP seems more like the obvious surface list than it's.
Sure, to each their own.
Some people love working in the terminal. Some people are huge terminal.
Yeah. It's probably getting worse from here.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I've gotten, with the advent of like Claude Code, I've started to spend more time in the terminal, right? But before it was like I would very much do like my Git commands through WebStorm and not actually through the terminal, stuff like that. But
shame on me. I use Git on the CLI. So
I use Git on the CLI.
There goes my whole case about the IDE should surface this.
So maybe this is like super Canadian to me because of the discussion we were having before around the whole like Fahrenheit, Celsius, miles, kilometers, feet, centimeters
before
discussion.
the record button.
Yeah, exactly. I'll like get checkout and get pull from the terminal, but I'll do pretty much everything else from web. So I just split where I do my Git command.
I guess in a way I do that too. I feel like the Git log view is way easier to read and like see the change list. Also the comparison is much better.
Oh my god.
But yeah, like every interaction with the commits itself and rebasing. Okay.
Wow.
Talk us through the fantastic CLI again.
All right, the
Flint
CLI. Love it. Yeah, so watch mode if you want it. If you're not, LSPing the entire project all at once. Let me present to you a difficulty with lint rules. And this has been one of the big reasons why a lot of people hate linters. It's really hard to express why a lint rule is reporting. If you are overly verbose, people don't read the text. If you are overly succinct, people don't understand why it's reporting. If you are overly opinionated, people push back. Hey, get off my code. If you're not forceful, or if you don't make it clear, like, no, that is wrong, people are like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Phrasing is really difficult. So right off the bat, we've been putting a lot of effort into phrasing for lint rules and Flint to make them like the recent rules you see in like ESLint, TypeScript, ESLint, NoExLint, where like people have really put thought into very clear, this is what's wrong messages, not just do the thing. But then that brings up the difficulty of some people want a longer description with like codes, squiggly, syntax highlighting, let's say even in the terminal, and like multiple levels of. Some people just want like one line, and ESLint defaults is just the one line thing. I think OXLint might default to the longer explanations. They're both very valid approaches.
Yeah.
So we give you both. Flint lint rules actually have to, as part of their message format, provide all the information, the primary, the secondary, and the suggestions message fields. And then the CLI will, oh, I forget what the defaults are, but let's say in CI, it just shows the primary message, just, get a quick view. And then in your terminal, if you do like presenter detailed, then we will show you the nice, color-coded ones with the code squigglies and explanations of what's going on. So you get like a really nice best of both worlds approach there.
I do like that a lot. It would be super convenient because I do remember like looking, okay, why is this now failing here? The example is quite the case that I had with ESLint. So it's like hard to understand what's going on. Yeah, I like that. And I can totally see the case, just like you said, like in CI, you don't need the verbose explanation. You just want to see it's failing or it's not.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're dealing with like migrating code and being like the example you're giving about watch mode, right? Where you're like, oh, I'm moving this project or I add a new lint rule. I have to go fix, 150 cases of this one thing and it doesn't have a fix option or something like that, right? Like having a really good description, even if it's verbose when you're doing that, just makes it because there's less like guessing and being like, okay, so wait, what's it telling me is wrong? Like I know it's flagging this, but what's it actually telling me? So I'm actually fine with extra verbosity. Like it's definitely not needed in CI as much, right? Like I said, but when you're going to do that actual like migration or adding a new rule and fixing up a bunch of cases or like adding a rule that like you've never worked with before or is like linting some kind of obscure wacky thing that JavaScript, like having a good explanation of like why you're fixing it like this and like what's right or what's wrong. That's one of the things I really liked about like all the markdown files in ESLint or in, I don't know if it's in the ESLint repo directly but it's like here's a good here's how you configure it, here's not how you configure it, here's like a good example of what it looks like when it's fixed, here's a good example of what it's like when it's not fixed. Having that really clear is really awesome because you're able to see like, oh, I'm not just given like a type definition of what the configuration looks like. This is what it looks like, or this is not what it looks like, right? Common things like that. So verbosity is great.
Yeah, strong agree. That actually brings up a tangential feature for Flint. We, by nature of building everything into the main project, we have a very consistent docs experience. We are also building tooling equivalent to ESLint doc generator, shout out that classic tool, to kind of make really rich docs pages. But we're also standardizing all of our docs to be very informative. Everything we've seen from ESLint, TypeScript ESLint, ESLint plugin regex, and so on, we are putting into all the docs pages. ESLint plugin is a fantastic source of inspiration. It's the ESLint plugin to lint writing an ESLint plugin. And then in TypeScript ESLint, we also have a bunch of lint rules for like, and tests, like the docs must mention this, the docs should not be phrased like that. All that stuff is getting built into Flint and applied to all the core lint rules, all whatever is currently 400, soon to be 1,000. So you can get this really nice, cohesive, rich docs experience from Flint that is like really hard to build if it's not, ingrained from the beginning.
I have one more question, but it's kind of tangent to CLI. So if there's more to that, I don't want to already derail this conversation.
Okay, I think one more thing to bring up for the CLI, which is interactive mode. Inspired by vtest and jest interactive mode. Most of the time when I personally am writing linter, I just want all the things all at once. But sometimes I'm like working on really tricky stuff. Like you mentioned, Jay, let's say the rule is difficult, doesn't have an auto fixer that could be made. So we have an interactive mode where it stays open and just shows you one file at a time. And then you can use your keyboard navigation to swap between files. It'll, if you fix the file, it'll update. And then that defaults, of course, to the detailed view. So you get like this really nice, almost like a companion in your terminal if you're into that kind of thing as you're fixing rules.
That sounds cool, but also really difficult to do and kind of a pain in the ass.
It was actually not as difficult to implement as I thought it would be. Once the eureka moment was separating the concept of how the CLI is running versus what it's presenting. The like interactive mode versus just one-shot mode takes in an abstract presenter, whatever interface, I think, and then calls its methods as needed.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
I was really excited about that.
Jay, final chance before I come up with my tangent.
Let's hear the tangential question.
So, I mentioned it earlier in like a side conversation, but knip as a somewhat of a linter as well, kind of has a very different angle from like all the other linters we mentioned so far. knip is more for like dependencies and unused files and like that level of abstract. Is that something something Flint. Sorry, the words are they share hardly any
Weirdly
similarity,
similar,
but
yeah.
they were too similar in my head. Does Flint have any ambition, ideas to go in a similar direction? Is that really out of scope because it's more looking at like how ESLint is doing things? What is your
It's a great question. I've been meaning to reach out to Lars for Knip because I love Knip so much.
It's fantastic.
It's so good. Oh my God. So high quality. One of my favorite things. I don't know. There is some level of Knip that could be built into Flint, but I don't know that it's all of it. We just haven't looked into it yet. And I wouldn't want to build part of it into Flint because then you're going to be running Knip anyway. Why have two tools? Actually, one learning we got from Flint. I love shouting out when we learned from other people.
Yeah.
Is they have this awesome create once API for rules that changes how you write your JavaScript rules. In ESLint lands, the traditional way of doing things, same with like TSLint back in the day and so on, you have one rule instance per file. You have, let's say, like the unused variables rule will new up or call its setup method once per file, run a bunch of stuff, and then you have reports. Well, now you have an instance per file. Not great when you have a lot of files. So they have this create once thing where there's one instance overall, like a singleton, and then it just, receives files as they come. We do that in Flint now. That's the way that Flint rules work. You have to go out of your way to make one instance per file, which means cross-file analysis is actually a lot more straightforward because you can set up state, then run setup, and then we also allow for async teardown, which therefore means that you can have things like import, cycle analysis detection built into Flint, or like unused imports would actually be a lot more doable in Flint than like a traditional paradigm. Yeah. All that is to say, we know we could build a lot more and like a lot richer lint rules in this line, but it hasn't been a priority. Honestly, we've got so much bigger fish to fry in the meantime.
And that's pretty fair. It was more like, okay, I tried to figure out like what's vision for lint in that regard. I do very much think that Knip is a very complementary tool to what is already out there. So I don't see a strong case either. But yes, shout out to Knip. It's fantastic.
Great tool.
I gotta give that a shot one of these days. I still haven't checked it out. I know.
Yes.
Blasphemy.
I have never turned on Knip and not found a lot of dead things in any meaningful project. In other words, every time I've turned on Knip in a meaningful project, it has found a bunch of cruft.
Oh man, I'm gonna try it after this. I'm gonna try it today.
The average WebStorm users are like, well, WebStorm already marks like unused code and stuff. It's so much. I have to say that.
And WebStorm's not just gonna.
WebStorm does a lot of things. So when I was working on the plugin, I had to like double check a couple things. Is this now coming from the Knip language service? This is our inspection. But like the integration that they do with like package JSON and also then like in libraries, like in the vtest configuration, if you configure a plugin but then that doesn't apply, that's the level of Knip.
Oh yeah.
That was my tangent. If you're down for it, you have something very exciting also coming up end of February, as teased before. But I feel like I'm here to introduce a tangent. So if there's more to Flint that you feel or Jay feels like we haven't talked about,
you are the tangent.
I'm giving. I just have very short attention span.
Yeah. I think a lot of us do nowadays.
I'm checking the blog post I wrote to try to remember what else there is in Flint. There's so much, it's hard to keep track of. Oh yeah, cross-file fixes. This just got declined to be added to ESLint, so I'm all salty and excited to work on it for Flint.
Nice.
Let's say you have a spell checker. I use it in all my projects. I find it to be useful. I know it's debatable. There are a lot of reasons why you might have cross-file fixes. This one is like, okay, let's say the lint rule reports a typo, and one of the suggestions is to add it to your dictionary. Let's say it's a name. Well, that dictionary is going to be stored in like a cspell.json or some such. So we allow cross-file fixes in Flint. We have like a way, or rather cross-file suggestions. We have a way to do that. I know it's like a small thing, but I don't know.
Do you have like an example for JavaScript right now, or like just to make it more tangible?
Let's say that you have styles. Let's front end app, and you have a lint rule that says don't use the inline element styles. Use whatever system we've set up for styling. Let's say it's like a .module.css or some Panda library or some such. The lint rule could suggest, and perhaps we'll even allow auto fixing, to delete the code in the one file and then add the style in the other.
Okay, I can see that, because my first use case was like something like should be exported as a const or something, but you also don't want to like put red squigglies on everywhere where it's used, so it would seem very noisy. But okay, I can see your example.
There's still one file location in one file that has the red or yellow squiggly. Actually, that's another thing. I think there are at least two more big things with Flint that's to bring up. One is that we don't have warnings. It's all errors, only errors. I hate
I don't know how I
warnings.
feel about this.
So here's the thing. People say, I want my linter to have warnings because I don't want red squigglies. I want yellow squigglies. That's a different concern. The concern I'm saying is that when you allow developers to leave some squigglies in the file whenever they want, willy-nilly, when you can just have a warning and it doesn't fail to build, then you're training people to just let that stuff live forever.
I do agree with that. Keep talking.
The problem is the visual reporting. You don't want lint rules to be reported with the same squiggly color as like a type error. They're not the same thing, which is why I love editors like WebStorm that have like multiple levels between just yellow and red for squigglies. Yes. I know that's not the only reason people don't like this, but that's like the main one I found. How do you feel about this?
So talk me through how this looks. So you basically just everything is an error.
Yes.
Then how can you distinguish the visual representation of that, or is everything just breaking the build?
I mean, everything should break the build,
right?
Yeah,
it's
you
binary,
should.
Right? Yeah.
It is my opinion that you should never have ESLint report or linter reports that are present and active and visible, but do not fail to build. Now, there are reasons to have a lot of rules that are currently not fully enabled. Like you might have a new rule that has a lot of reports that you want to enable over time. You don't want to add new ones in. For that, I would direct one to the bulk suppressions feature in ESLint. It's a relatively newer feature for situations like this. But like just if a rule, once a rule has been added, you shouldn't regress on it.
Talk me through the bulk suppression feature because I've literally, this is the first.
Okay, sweet. So most of the time, let's say you have a lint rule and you don't always agree with its reports, which is actually really common. You often will need to have like a disable next line comment or disable for this file. That's in Flint, that's in ESLint, everyone has that.
Yeah.
But let's say you have a rule that has a lot of those and you don't want to allow people to keep adding like new violations of the rule. What you can do now is set up a suppressions.json, which stores like an automatically updatable snapshot of these are all the reports for the rule or rules that I have enabled that I don't have time to fix now, but would like to eventually.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's an explicit, I know this is a warning, I'll get to it, versus an implicit, there's a warning in my IDE, but I'm going to commit any.
Exactly.
Cool. I do like that.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's a great example of tackling the root issue behind a behavior.
Yeah, that's fair. It's more of an you have to opt out of the action instead of opting into the action.
Exactly. That's a great way to phrase that. Thank you. I'm going to steal that.
You can steal that if you want.
Right.
What were we talking about? Yeah, I feel like we got there.
Warnings.
Warnings and fixing developer.
Right, because my use case was usually, okay, I like the idea of a lint rule, but it's too much effort right now to justify adding it entirely already to the repository. But it is a great rule and we should adhere to that. So I personally still preferred having a yellow squiggly that told me, hey, are you sure this is the right way to go? When you're already working on this, do you maybe want to consider doing it the right way immediately? But I do like your approach. I now seeing how I think there needs to be a way to like open this migration path and like enabling new rules that probably violate a lot of existing code.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be prevented from having any squiggly at all. You could have like a blue squiggly. And actually, we've been talking about this internally, and I kind of like this idea. It's a new one of suppressed rules being given a blue squiggly just to indicate, hey, there would be an issue here. That way, I don't love the training people to ignore any squiggly, but like telling them that they like a yellow squiggly is still a sign of this needs to be fixed is like, not as violated.
Yeah, no strong opinions, but I like the concept. Okay.
Cool. Let me bring up one more thing.
Yes, please.
Okay, this one I annoyed myself for forgetting. Flint, and now also OXLint, fun fact, coordinates a formatter. And in fact, Flint, is it OXLint coordinates the type checker, Biome also coordinates the formatter? Flint does both. I forget. I'm sorry. Too many things happening in the ecosystem. But basically, here's the problem that a lot of teams have. They have a linter, they have a formatter, they have a type checker, 2 to 3 of those things. And then they have a separate job or task or whatnot in CI for each of them. And or more maybe they don't want to have 3 separate freaking jobs. So they have one job that does all 3 of them. And then, if one fails, the subsequent one or ones doesn't run. That's annoying. That's a literal waste of money, that could all be done at once, especially since if you separate your type checking job from your linting job, now you're running the type checker twice, which is oftentimes one of the most expensive parts of your CI.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So Flint coordinates. It reuses the type information, the type services from TypeScript, and then also additionally reports any type errors in your files. Furthermore, it also runs a formatter, right now just always prettier, on your files that you've linted. So you reduce your CI expenditure by 1/3 or to 1/3.
And because like Prettier and ESLint has always been a little bit blurry. This got better with the stylistic rules. Flint just coordinates this and I don't need to worry about it. Is that what you're trying to tell me? I like it.
The resistance I think a lot of people had to not using ESLint or linters as a formatter was not because of some ideological need to have formatting lint rules. They just didn't want to configure two tools. So with Flint, you just want one thing. It's great.
Can you guys make this stable already so that I can use it?
Fund us. Give us money and we'll get it done faster.
If Jay would just know the CTO of a company that could justify spending money like that.
I got the first part. I got the CTO part down pat. I don't got the has money to fund though right now part. I'm working on it. I promise I'm working on it, but not there yet.
This
fingers crossed.
This actually turned out to be a much better
tangent.
Segue. Thank you. Speaking of funding, you did a lot of this stuff open source. Well, you did all of this stuff open source, but for the last couple of years, you did all work open source, and that was your main source.
Yes.
That is about, and I would, if you're down, I would love to spend a couple minutes talking about the whys, what happened, how we got here. If this is a personal story and you don't feel like putting this out on the internet, cool. I can hit the stop button and we talk after.
No, we're good. I'm privileged enough that I don't have to worry too much about feeling this about me. I'm very happy about that. So I've been independent open source for a little over 4 years now. It's lovely. I've gotten a lot done. A lot of the initiatives I wanted to, like making type linting a lot better, TypeScript, ESLint, and actually Flint. But when people hear that I'm going to be starting a full-time role, many of them, their first reaction is, it must have been the money, right? Because the money's not as good. The money's like the second or third reason. The main reason that I'm stopping being independent is the loneliness that I figured out finances for myself, but no one else has. Very few people have. And it's lonely and isolating to not have a manager and an HR department and like a sustained project and team around me. All those things I used to complain about. Look, I get screamed at on the internet and like called insert bad name here way too often. Like I want HR to help with that.
Fair enough.
Honestly, fair.
Love open source. So I started looking for a job around fall of 2025. That's why that happened. And then now I'm going to be starting at Sentry. Very excited about that. Love Sentry. Love their relationship with open source, their product.
Top tier. We're on like a whole project right now of like using almost every feature that we can find in Sentry, and we've like rebuilt our whole Sentry integration from the ground up. Actually, while we were recording this, one of my teammates messaged me, was like, "We've been using the Sentry integration on the back end wrong. We've been initializing it too late, so it actually hasn't been capturing a bunch of stuff." So, but like top tier software, Sentry's offerings are absolutely insanely. So for anybody listening that has an injury, go use Sentry.
And also just everyone I know on the team, and I met with a couple of them in Vegas a couple weeks ago. Super nice. So
great. Yeah. So Josh, you're in good company, or they're in good company. You're both in good company.
Yeah.
I hope both. Yeah.
Thank you. I think both.
Do they have an office in Boston?
They do not. I'm likely to be visiting Toronto a few times a year.
Okay. I
have family up there. I'm excited about it.
Nice.
Wait, is Sentry a Canadian company?
I think that's just the closest office.
Oh, okay. I was like, yes, another one we can claim. We can't claim it, I don't think.
My mom is Canadian. I mean, maybe I'm half Canadian. Sure.
Yeah, that makes you Canadian. Like by definition, I'm pretty sure.
So what would that look like for you? Are you going, because Sentry is internally all over the place, in a good way. I don't mean this like in an unstructured way, just in a good way, but like, what will you focus
on? I'm going to be kind of a normal person. I'm not going to be doing wacky open source explorations. I'm going to start off as a front-end dev on the data browsing team. That being said, I am very much looking forward to working with the web platform and design systems and such teams at Sentry. I know a lot of great people there. And then I also do still plan actively on working on open source in my spare time, which is how I used to do it back in the day.
Okay. So what made you join Sentry then? Just out of curiosity.
Love the product. The open source pledge is huge. Like the work that Chad Whittaker has been doing to try to help make open source less unsustainable is wonderful. And it speaks not just to like a positive group of people like Chad in there, but also to a company that's able to, put aside the brutalist capitalism of the world and like actually do good in this area. I also really liked talking to everyone I met there. They did a really good job interviewing, and they're paying me quite nicely.
That's nice.
Right. That's always a bonus.
No.
Almost a requirement.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, Josh. Jay,
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
any last words?
I'm stoked that Sentry gets Josh. Stoked for Flint. It sounds really awesome. I love the all-in-one nature of it. And I mean, just knowing Josh, I know there's good. Excited to see where it goes.
The
Josh,
phrase "any last words" kind of intimidates me. I got worried. For
I don't mean this in a speak your last words ever.
Yeah.
Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Oh,
More like, is there any final words that you would have recorded and like our lovely audience to take home?
Sure. First of all, thank you all for listening. I know that a lot of people hate the linter, and I hope that the work that many people, including the ESLint team and all the other linters and I are doing, are making that better. If you're interested in Flint and if you have money, send it our way. Otherwise, if just in general, check it out on flint.fyi. That's right. That's the URL, flint.fyi.
I saw that earlier and I was like, this is awesome.
Nice.
I was so happy about that. I have another project that's used in Create TypeScript app that's on the URL create.bingo. I'm getting good at this.
I love it.
We actively welcome anyone who wants to help out or just try it out. Honestly, the CLI works. We want to work with as many people as possible. We want to make this as good of a project as possible. And again, if it goes nowhere and it just proves out positively or negatively its core hypotheses, we would consider it a success. So please help us out. We think it's a lot of fun.
On the helping out front, just for our listeners, I opened my first pull request to Flint during this podcast recording.
What?
So
Hey,
if I can do it
were you
while
not
doing
paying
the
attention?
podcast, I was doing both. I'm doing this as a publicity stunt. I
Wow.
opened the PR while podcasting with Elon and Josh. So that
Oh.
means you, the listener, are also able to do it.
But you used AI.
Well, yeah, of course.
I can tell because the PR description is like 20 paragraphs. No, this is great. Thank you so much. I'm honestly
welcome.
really impressed. That was a skill move right
You
there.
have my
There you
stamp of
go.
approval to just hit the decline button.
All it does is rename the function.
And
Yeah.
you needed to write a 20-paragraph description for it.
Well, I didn't write it. Claude Code did. But all it does is it says all the things that, which is there's plus 10 lines and minus. So it's not actually that much.
No, this is great. Honestly, any level of contribution is wonderful. It helps out. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. That was more of a publicity stunt for you, so that our
Great.
listeners go and contribute to Flint.
Well, no,
I will see if I
appreciate
can
it.
do any others.
A bot of AI people just opening 300 pull requests.
Oh my God.
If that happens, send them all to Jay. Fault.
Yeah.
I'm not associated with the Flint project. I have no pull on
You-
AI pull requests.
You have one pull open right now.
Yeah.
That's true. You know what? Fair enough. I have one poll open right now. Yep, a singular poll.
I'm going to be smug about that for the rest of the week.
Thank you so much, Josh, for coming on. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And to all our listeners out there, thank you very much for joining us. And check out Flint. See you.
Bye, everyone.
I was
End.
so close to just hit the end button and leave instead of put it end in there.
Instinct.
Thank you so much. This was great. I really enjoyed this, and I hope that I think I said this the last time when we talked about bingo, but whatever you define success, you will or find.
Thanks.
With.
I appreciate it. This was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. And also I appreciate the publicity and the pull request. That's really funny. Wouldn't that be a great signature move if just every time you interviewed someone on open source, you sent like a rename or some
Just
such
go
to
and
there?
open a PR. You know what?
Yeah.
I might start trying to do that. We'll see. We'll see if I actually approve of the project or not. So you'll know what projects I approve of if the recording comes out and there's no request from Jay.
Good to know. But yeah,
Okay. Well, I have to go to a meeting that I don't want. So
I'm hungry.
good luck.
See you.
Have fun.
I'm so hungry right now. See you guys.
Go get
Cheers.
some-
Bye.
Bye, guys.